We are live. Oh, there's Brett. Sorry.
Ha!
You're live. Hello.
Down to the wire today.
No.
Down to the wire.
I was because I was thinking for a second. I was like, did I send it to him? Because I always assume that I screwed up. But no, you're actually on time. It's still 7:59. We're just early.
Yes.
Hello to everyone.
Well, I've heard if you're not early, you're late.
Yes, that's a good maxim to live by. I have got, people say or people think that you can't change or whatever. And I know there are some things that are more intractable than others, but I have to say that timeliness is something that I've improved on a lot from earlier periods in my life because, I have a waitressing job right now. And I just realized the other day I've had the job now for, I don't know, a couple of months or whatever. And I have not been late once. But I was thinking about how every other job I've had, I have not been like chronically terribly late or anything, but like, I was late some. And so you can get better. You can improve.
Wait, so like when you were a professor, was that like, did you just stroll in 10 minutes late sometimes?
I was
like, sorry, guys.
I was talking about other waitressing jobs, but actually, no, that was one of the great things. There were a lot of things I didn't like about being a professor, but that was one of the great things is that you were the boss, right? And so within reason, like, here's the thing, like if you got ridiculous with your behaviors or like you were late a lot or it was something problematic, then the students would eventually, like you had to worry about students eventually, complaining. So that was never something I worried about. I wasn't like that, but no, you could come in late if you wanted to on certain days, let the class out early because, students, they always want to get out of class. And so if you're not feeling it one day or whatever, and you say, oh, guys, I'm just not feeling good or whatever. And yeah, I've used that one a few times. But now it's funny, though. In my middle age, I'm not sure what that's about, but it's a good change. Have you had any changes? You used to be like a Requiem for a Dream person, right? When you were
yeah even at my worst I was pretty good about making it to places on time. I'm pretty neurotic in general, so I'm like I'm the airport dad even without being a dad. Like you gotta show up super early and stuff like that. I don't like to leave things to the last minute, but that's more out of a worst case scenario fear than anything else. But I was thinking about it. So think about all those times I remember being in school when you would, when a teacher would just drag in the big TV and the VCR or the whatever. I wonder how many of those days the teachers were just hungover and didn't feel like teaching. I've lost you. Audio.
Try it again. I was saying. I was saying, if I think about like the public school days, like those teachers, there was one teacher in particular that we used to laugh about. She was on Xanax all the time, and her son was friends with some of us. He was our age, and so he would tell us that she was hooked on Xanax, and so she was like in a cloud every single day. We watched the same movie 3 times one semester, like that.
That's sad. That's just sad.
Oh, Titter Noose. I don't know how to say your name. Sorry. It says Requiem for a Dream, the double dilly. No, I don't. That's not hopefully what Brett endured.
No.
No, but you've been very open about how you've been in recovery now for a long time, right?
Yeah. Like for me though, being late was one of those things where my dad was always very punctual. And I was always kind of like raised to think like a lot of the people, if you're super late, a lot of times it was like a way to exert control over your situation. Now, I showed up late to work from time to time, but not a lot.
You've always been prompt with me.
The like sometimes they work jobs where it's just like I worked at a Target and my shift would start at 5, but it would be across town, so just traffic at that time would be awful and you wouldn't be able to predict it and stuff like that. But in general, like I'm ready for the show. We're always ready for the show early. I try to be places early in general, but not always.
Well, it's definitely a good trait. Shane H. Wilder is here with us. Of course, Shane says, "Sup, Kurtz and Dasovic. Sorry, I'm late." Oh, you were late. Yes, I was cooking and memeing. Don't worry, Kurtz, you're safe. Brett, on the other hand, memeing. Oh, you have a good Brett meme coming out?
He's Shane is resident meme smith for our show. He posts memes almost every day, usually making me look a little bit foolish, which is okay.
Well, so today we're going to talk about some stuff like I don't even know. You're probably not even very familiar because you don't follow the Johnny Depp or Marilyn Manson cases, obviously, the way like I do or some of my audience do. But there was some. But I wanted to talk a bit, and then we'll move on to other things. But I wanted to talk a bit about some various things that have happened this week. In the last week or so, it was just kind of, I think, just some really, I guess, unsurprising, but still infuriating media manipulation and misinformation. And so, have you heard anything about this new Vice series on Johnny Depp?
Yeah. I mean, at least I saw the announcement for it. And
the title,
I mean,
dude, The 9 Lives of Johnny Depp. It's like,
I just can't believe what's interesting to me is just like, it's like squeezing more blood out of it. Like, it just can't believe there's that much interest left in it to produce a series of that length. Like, I don't know how long each part is, but that's a long series.
It's an hour, and it's going to be, there's like multiples. Like, it's a whole show that each week is going to come out on Vice, right? People in the comments.
So it's like multiple parts.
Yeah.
I mean, and those things those aren't cheap to make. So I don't know who the audience is for that. I would imagine that the Vice audience would be pretty ambivalent about Johnny Depp, given how things turned out. Now, if the trial had gone the other way, that might have been a very big hit series to produce. But I don't really know if that would have really been seen that way, given the fact that the trial went the way that it did. I just don't buy that the Vice audience wants to watch that. But I guess if they're going to spin it the way they want to spin it,
I think that and we see this in lots of different areas now, but I think that there is a divergence between what the public want and what media is trying to give us. And so, like, there's this article, I'm putting it up here. This came out during the trial, or sometime, I think, right after. And the title was "We've All Failed Amber Heard." And it's on Vice, this long article about how she has had, such a raw deal. And this seemed to have been consensus media coverage. If we're talking about the mainstream media, consensus media coverage on this case was very much, generally speaking, anti-Johnny Depp, pro Amber Heard, or fence sitting to the sense of, well, it was toxic all the way around, that sort of thing. And I mean, was that your feeling about, because you were observing that was going on at the time too?
We covered it more from the general public perspective. It felt like we covered a lot of like what the public sentiment was. So, for instance, remember when all of the baristas were putting out tip jars, like one for Johnny Depp and one for Amber Heard. Like the media coverage, I guess for me these days, I'm so jaded. Like anytime I see an article like that that's severely bent one way, that's just what I expect anyways. So the public consensus about it was more to me that very clearly the tides were turning and it was going in favor of Johnny Depp. So that's where I saw most of the public sentiment going. So the media response to it, though not unexpected, didn't really interest me that much because it was so predictable.
Yeah, it definitely was predictable. And so there's just this short clip that's come out from this series, a promo clip, because it hasn't aired yet. The first episode apparently comes out tomorrow night, or Wednesday night. But anyway, this is a clip. This is Amber Heard's attorney talking. And, you expect that attorneys they're going to give the party line for their clients, right? Whatever their clients want. But she engages in just some really, I think, like surprisingly even egregious lies here. So I wanted to play just this brief clip. This is on That Umbrella Guy's channel. I'm going to call it up one second. I know most of my viewers know Tug. Have you ever talked to Tug before?
I have never talked to him. I know who he is long before he covered Johnny Depp, obviously doing stuff in comics, talking about stuff in comics all the way back then. But yeah,
he's very diverse. In fact, I think y'all correct me if I'm wrong, right? He's doing like hip hop now or whatever, like following the inspiration of Ben Shapiro and Norm MacDonald?
Awesome.
Tom MacDonald. Norm MacDonald, someone else.
Norm MacDonald rap would be hilarious.
Oh man. All right, here we go. It's short, and then I just wanted to talk about it a bit.
He developed this fan base that just adores him unconditionally. They will blame whoever he might have done something wrong to. It's their fault. They asked for it. Well, Amber, what did you do to cause him to hit you? You must be.
Okay, so this right here, first of all, this is my big problem. Well, one of my big problems is like, this is just blatant misrepresentation. There are no Johnny Depp fans. 99.9% of Johnny Depp fans are supporters who say this or think this, that the issue is, well, of course, he hit her, but did he have the right to or not? No, we all flatly deny that the man abused Amber Heard. And so, to me, I don't know. I just thought this was kind of shocking.
There's also the counter argument one could make that if you just change the names and you pulled up the clip of her saying, I didn't punch you, I hit you, it's different. You could make the argument, if you wanted to be unfair, that all of her fans do the same thing. Now, that would be intellectually dishonest. Certainly, you would hope that there is a middle ground for the average person who doesn't look at someone's behavior and decide whether they're innocent or guilty based on their gender or whether you like them or not. You take the evidence of what was given to you, such as that audio clip, and you decide whether you want to support or deny that person. But she's not being intellectually honest here. It's actually kind of annoying.
No, I mean, it really is. And I mean, I know some people will say, well, what else do you expect or whatever, but to me, like, this is just, it's a step beyond even what we're used to.
Mhm.
And, the only way in which she's even remotely referring to anything with some truth in reality is, okay, there are some of us who have said things before, like, if Amber Heard, because we know that she was so aggressive and that she was initiating, she's admitted that she was initiating these episodes between them. If Amber Heard came at him and in self-defense, he shoved her away or had to defend himself some way physically. I'm not talking about giving her a beat down or whatever, but like someone's coming at you and they're trying to hurt you, push him away, hit him away, whatever you have to do. If that had occurred, then yes, that would be understandable. But that's not what Elaine is talking about here. She's saying that that Johnny Depp supporters, we're a bunch of like horrible Neanderthals. I mean, it's actually, I'm sorry to insult to Neanderthals, but who are just like, yeah, what did that bitch do? Deserve that? I mean, it's just, come on. Anyway, Elaine Bredehoft, I actually defended her at one point during the trial initially because, and I know some people might hate to hear this, I've talked about it before, but I felt like Brown Rudnick had Johnny Depp's lawyers had a really weak intro, a really weak series of opening arguments, whereas I felt that Elaine Bredehoft, I thought she did a better job, had something more compelling. If you didn't know the facts, if you didn't know what she was lying about or whatever. And I'm not anti-Elaine, but she's really, this is just ridiculous.
And that's what documentaries like this bank on, right? They bank on you only seeking out the information that you want and allowing yourself to be swept up in the narrative of whatever that documentary is. It really is. These are like documentaries which are becoming so prolific on streaming services between all of them, because they especially appeal to women, like, whether it's true crime or documentaries about old celebrities, they really are a way for modern media to rewrite history in interesting ways, which is really scary and disturbing, because it can be the most ridiculous misrepresentation of facts, but because it is still a representation, however skewed, they get away with it, and it allows them to fundamentally change what we believe is real. Now, maybe not for this generation, right? Maybe this won't be hold true for the people who lived through this trial and saw it happen. But certainly if somebody 10 years from now stumbles on this documentary and watches it, they will be fed a bunch of information that won't conform with reality, because the media is allowed to do this. And new documentaries are produced every day from all of these streaming services for various court cases, real people and things like that. It's really funny. We were talking about it. Like, in a lot of ways, because Hollywood is now so obsessed with the concept of IP, everything has to be based on an existing property because it's the only thing that's bankable. Now, you as an individual, if you're a celebrity, you're your own form of IP. So they're not going to produce the documentaries on people you've never heard of, but we're getting a plethora of documentaries being made on people who are still alive.
That's interesting. Yeah.
There should be a ban on making documentaries about people that are still alive. You should have to be dead to have a documentary made about you. I'm sorry.
Man. Well,
certainly we just saw this weekend, Madam Web got smoked at the box office by the Bob Marley biopic that didn't even have all that good of a critic rating.
It only had like a 43% on Rotten Tomatoes, I saw, which I know the critics can be wrong, but no,
the fans loved it. The fans loved it. It got like a 90 from the fans.
Yeah, biopics are huge, and I think that when they are done with an effort to conform, even with, I know, like, composite characters, whatever, but generally to conform with reality, like, I think that's really cool. But here what we're getting, like, this is even beyond. This is just going to be propaganda, and I think that the media, they know, here's what I think is going on, and I'm not any genius, like other people are talking about this too, but the media know, who are by far very leftist and pro-woke, and no offense to you, those of you on the left, but like this very sort of, problematic feminism. The media they're so in bed with this, and they know that Amber Heard, that this case, that it dealt a really hard blow to the believe women mantra, that philosophy, and all of that. Like, they know that. And so I think this is really a sore spot for them. Also, it gets ratings. Let's be honest. Like, I was just noticing here, we have the highest number of views right now that we have gotten in a while.
Yeah.
And the only difference, what's going on, is that YouTube is pushing it more because it's got, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard stuff on it, which is fine. Like, we're all interested in this, but I'm just saying, like, it's definitely, they wouldn't be doing it if there weren't some kind of profit, but also they're trying to push an agenda. And so part of it is to make it seem like these Johnny Depp defenders are just these stupid fans, and they try to do it with Marilyn Manson too, but these Johnny Depp defenders are just these, quote, dumb fans who don't even care if he hit a woman, because I'm sure that bitch had it coming. That's just so stupid. All right, let's continue this, though. And I know, y'all, it's a little bit hard to hear. That's because it's StreamYard, so you just have to turn it up when Elaine is talking. Sorry.
Be the bad person here. And that's the way they thought. About 95% of the social media wasn't just anti-Amber, it was with a purpose to annihilate Amber. There's no way she could have survived this. There's no way anyone could have survived this.
Oh, God, 9 lives of Johnny Depp.
I've heard that 95% of statistics are made up on the spot.
Oh, man. Well, that she just made, but I mean, it's true. Maybe what she should think about is, why is it that so many people have been on Johnny Depp's side? What they say is, oh, it's misogyny. No, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's because we all heard that audio that you were talking about, where it's just plainly obvious that there's who the problem was in that relationship.
That was what it was for me. There's a reason why I don't get emotionally invested in any of these Me Too cases. Like, and to be fair, the Marilyn Manson one hasn't developed the same buzz that the Johnny Depp was. But there's, like, whether it's this or the Jonathan Majors one, there's a new one every day from a new celebrity, and we'll cover it. We'll talk about the basic facts of who was it, where are they suing, what are they suing for. We just had a couple months ago where, like, because of that law in New York City, so you saw P. Diddy, you saw Jamie Foxx, you saw all of these lawsuits come forward. And it's just really hard to get invested unless there is some type of magical proof. And that's just never the case for most of this stuff. So you really do have to go with your gut. And I'm not going to go to the war to war with anyone on the internet ever anyways, but a lot of people do, right? And to me, I just can't imagine that the average person wants to go to war with a whole horde of fans on either side just because they have a gut feeling about someone. Because you know what? Gut feelings can be wrong. And I take the position most of the time that simping at any stage for any celebrity is a bad idea because they're fallible. They're human beings, and attaching that much of what you believe to a person rather than an idea isn't good. But with Johnny Depp, that was the closest thing I had to at least some confirmation that it went one way, that it was pretty consistently one way, right? There was actually an audio tape, which you just don't get very much.
He was so lucky, Shane. Yeah. He was so, I'm going to call you Shane. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
He was so lucky, Brett, that he had that, because if he hadn't, Johnny Depp, we're talking about, if he hadn't had that audio, I really think that public opinion would have not gone for him, or it would have just been this sort of meh, ambivalent, they're both shitty, whatever. But that was huge. Yeah. And it's too bad that other people that I do believe are innocent of what they're accused of, like Marilyn Manson, it's too bad that they don't have, a smoking gun. I know Manson we're going to talk about him in a moment, because I want to talk about the, proliferation of negative articles that have been coming out this past several days about him. But Manson is lucky that he has at least a semi-smoking gun attesting to Evan Rachel Wood's bad character in the evidence of the FBI letter. We actually do have the a photocopy of the FBI letter that where she faked, being an FBI agent, basically. And we have through the court.
That's crazy. That is crazy. That's like one of those ones where, like, just because we only covered it when it happened, like after like a week later or like 2 weeks later, whenever it come up, like, that was real, right? That happened. Like, That's
It is,
crazy.
and people who defend her, they have different ways of trying to dismiss it, and so, like, one of those ways is to say, "Well, she didn't use it in anything related to Marilyn Manson. What she used it for was in a custody case with her baby daddy, actor Jamie Bell." Well, that's
Yeah.
even worse, I think, actually, that you're lying to the family court about for basically trying to provide a fake reason for why you've absconded to Tennessee against the father's wishes with the child. You've
Good
kidnapped
use of
kid,
absconded.
and then you type up this fake FBI letter from a fake agent. Like, I actually think that's worse than trying to frame a grown man, as bad as that is. But anyway, so Manson was lucky that he had that, despite some of the objections people have raised to that. And then also, I think that Manson is lucky in general that if people that Ashley Morgan Smith line, the accuser who flipped, he is so lucky that she did that, and people can attribute that to whatever they want, but I'm just telling you that she flipped because she saw that the hoax was unraveling, that the things that she was promised were not coming to fruition, and the benefits that she hoped were not coming to fruition. And frankly, I think her conscience bothered her. And you know what? I have not talked to Ashley much at all since then. But we have from time to time touched base. And one of the things that she told me, and she won't mind me sharing this, one of the things that she told me was that there were people who had been up in her private life who had been upset with her for what she had done to Manson, and they were so proud of her now, and that she felt like it had mended relationships in her
Wow.
lives and in her life, and that she was feeling so much better about herself and stuff. Like, I am so thankful, because you don't get that normally in these cases, people recanting, because it takes a lot of guts to do it. I'm
Yeah.
grateful. And she did that in a legal declaration. It wasn't even like an interview. Like, she declared in a legal declaration that this
Yeah.
and I lied. She lied. So anyway, he's lucky he's got those two things. I just keep like harping on it.
It's also, I mean, the other thing for both Heard and for Evan Rachel Wood is just they don't have great optics with the public. I think most of the time, especially Heard, just, she was
Right.
very unlikable to the average person. Even the person who's not politically initiated or understands, or not even understands, but cares about the ramifications on a larger scale about what all of this means for society. She just wasn't a super likable person. Right.
Right. Amber Heard, you're
and
talking
that
about.
hurts.
Yeah.
Whereas Depp obviously was, almost to the point where a lot of times I'm like, look, he's an actor, right? He's a better actor than she is. So how real is any of this? But I'm naturally suspicious of any celebrity. But I think the real tragedy of all of this stuff is that nowadays, no matter what happens, no matter who is accused of anything, the immediate response from the internet seems to be that they're lying. And that is sad to me. It's not like now to approach all of these cases with like healthy suspicion and skepticism. I think that that's important. I think that you need to remain as objective as you possibly can, not allow the narrative behind the story to sway your opinion. Certainly that's come out with a lot of these things, like a very, very, very vile description of an act written can sway a lot of people in a lot of ways. And it's healthy to try and remain as emotionally detached from these cases as possible, lest you fall victim one way or the other to confirmation bias, right? As much as possible. But nowadays, it seems like everyone's opinion just automatically goes to, well, they're lying. And that makes sense because we've seen so much of it now. I understand why the public feels that way. But I do think it's a shame that we can't find a more measured response from society. But the internet isn't usually where you go for measured responses.
Well, I think that's a good point. What I would say to that, though, as someone who I think as someone who is generally on more of the perspective of extreme skepticism, without being
absolutely.
which I know you are, is that
Yeah.
I would rather, I guess I'll put it this way, I would rather, if it's going to go believe all women or don't believe them, I'm always going to go for the presumption of innocence. And I know some people disagree. I know you agree. I know some people disagree on that.
Better 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man spend a day in jail.
But it is unfortunate. And I think here's the thing I want to remind people too, is that I really do think that there are more false allegations in these celebrity cases because the incentives are so much greater.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, in my personal life, like if I hear a friend say, so-and-so, she said she was assaulted, or a mutual friend tells me she was assaulted, like I'm still going to be a lot more open to that narrative than I am when I'm sorry, but like airhead or bimbo or money grubber comes out and is like, oh yeah, he assaulted me 20 years ago, or in Amber's case, the whole calling TMZ and the weird fake bruise that disappeared at a party. And it was just like,
yeah, the financial benefit to suing a celebrity for these things is far too great to ignore and pretend like it's not a part of the equation. It absolutely is.
PR used to be, I know now it's become more complicated when women come out, but there's still so much to be gained. And in Amber's case, she really did. I'm not saying this is the case with all false accusations, but she really was very interested in becoming a huge activist and being perceived as a huge activist when it came to feminism and stuff. She did all these speeches, ambassadors, a UN ambassador, all this stuff like that. And so I think that she really thought that it would be a twofer, that she would be able to manipulate Johnny into giving her more money or concessions or whatever for the divorce, which was going on at the time. And then also that she could really burnish her credentials. And Evan Rachel Wood's, I think she's the same way. I think that,
spoke to Congress. Got a Hulu documentary out of it.
HBO, but she wasn't even going to get that until she agreed. That's the thing that's so crazy too, is like HBO and Amy Berg, they did not sign on to that big project until she agreed to name Manson. Like
the worst thing that, like, as much as a lot of people detest celebrities now, right? They just see them as detached from reality. There's a large sector of the public that just has had it with Hollywood. And more than anything for me, it's this trend amongst actors now to label themselves as both actor and activist that I find particularly detestable, mainly because I really detest activists, especially in today's day and age where activism means posting on social media and saying a bunch of slogans and hashtags. Which is barely slacktivism at that. And it really, what it is an ego boost in a way to virtue signal to other people what a great person you were. Did you see Killers of the Flower Moon?
I did, yes.
Okay, so I didn't see Killers of the Flower Moon, but a lot of people did, and some people did, and they liked it, and they thought it was good. Well, Lily Gladstone is out now. She's over the Super Bowl weekend. She's talking about at award shows and stuff about, the problematic nature of the Chiefs name as well as the 49ers name and all of this stuff. And I'm like, you're an actor, please. Like, the public will like you so much more. Now, I understand that is her right to do so, and I encourage her to do that, but I don't think that she should be surprised when the general public rolls their eyes at that. It's just so disingenuous in a day and age where they are so very much the ivory tower and the haves, and we are so very much the have-nots. To hear them talk about this stuff, it's so just disingenuous and depressing to think of these celebrities as like nobody wants to think of celebrities this way. There's a reason why actors used to be loathed by the general public, right? It was not something to aspire to back in the day.
Hundreds of years ago. No, you're right. You're right.
The court jester was allowed to mock the king to give the king perspective. Well, why was it that they gave the king perspective? Because they were not looked up upon by anyone else. That's the point.
Yeah, this conflation of activism and celebrity, and I know we all have our particular celebrities that we like, and when they do something, in a public way for a charity or whatever, like we like that or what have you. But a lot of this hyper politicized activism, it is so annoying, and I feel like particularly in the area of feminism, and also I think in racial politics at times, it's really become especially annoying. And so this is, people in my audience, some of you have probably seen this, but to me, this was an example of just some of the most, like, if I could use the word, like, enraging activism that she did on the back of her supposed experience with Johnny Depp. We're not going to watch the whole thing or whatever, but I want to watch a little bit of it.
We made in doing so, and to recognize how much we still have to go to see that full equality, that's full equality, is a reality for all of us. In the home and at work, in our schools and in the boardrooms, In our pay
What about
and
the
our
sewers?
physical safety.
What about the trash
In public
department?
and in private, in principle and in practice, no matter our
I want to
age,
get to this part where she talks about her own
The,
struggle.
the boardroom.
private
She
battle.
rocks, lady.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
All right. She's about to, this is where it really gets me to. Of course, it's all so like trite and shallow, but she's going to start talking about her, what she's been through to gives her these feminist credentials.
Years into my own private battle, and I smelled the smoke. I had for years walked tired and weary feet into battle every single day alone, privately, longing for a different kind of world than the one in which I used to live.
Bro.
One that reminded me that despite all that I had done and fought for, all I had said and survived for before and through my very public, heart-wrenchingly lonely battle for justice, that I, a woman, would never truly see it. That my voice couldn't fully count.
Oh my God, I gotta stop it. But like she just goes on and on about John, how oppressed she was with Johnny Depp.
Imagine being born in the most prosperous country at the most prosperous time to the most prosperous like demographic of all time, meaning that you're not just born in America. You're not just born in the 21st, you're not just in the 21st century, you're in the upper echelon, elite, top 1% of society, and you say all of that. And also I want to draw your attention to the first thing she said, which is there's so much more work to do.
Oh God.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There's always more work to do because activists would put themselves out of a job if they stopped telling you that.
That's true. No, it's true. It's true. And like, did you notice how there's actually not one thing of substance that she says in there? Like it's all these vague platitudes. Now, someone was asking what the smoke was about. Is she having a stroke? Now, so she's weaving this larger metaphor. If you listen to the whole thing, if you put yourself through that torture,
it just sounded like bad Tumblr writing.
Of like a 5-alarm fire. That basically here's the deal, that women are so oppressed that there's like this raging fire of misogyny and oppression in our society, and because she smells the smoke.
Yes. Well, guys, if you I don't know how many people on this channel pay close attention to what's going on at companies like Disney and stuff like that, but right now they're working for gender parity and putting in all sorts of quotas for hiring from underrepresented and marginalized group. It has never been a better time in the world to be born a woman than to be born a woman in 21st century America. I'm sorry. It's true. And the fact that is true, well, it's this great meme that says like, it's a picture of one of the women from The Handmaid's Tale. And it says like white Western women with a $175,000 house in an $80,000 SUV. And that's the picture, is that lady. And look, to be fair to them, if I was to play devil's advocate, how would we expect them to stop? We keep rewarding them when they do it, right? There's a reason why like men are loath to complain about their problems, because nobody listens and nobody cares. Like that's the sad fact of the matter. Like nobody listens and nobody cares when things go wrong with men. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that either. I'm always like, fix your own shit. Okay. So when I see this stuff, like now, if it's the average everyday person, somebody in the chat mentioned, and they are correct, that Christian Bale is spending $22 million or so of his own money to open a group of foster homes that is aimed at keeping children together, the brothers and sisters together, which is freaking fantastic. That's actual activism, not done with a bunch of platitudes, not done with an empty, hollow core. Now, I haven't done my due diligence on like what the financials of this place look like, but it certainly didn't come with the fanfare that these types of speeches that you get at the Women's March and stuff come with, right? So I have a special level of distrust and distaste for the average activist in 21st century America. It's just so frustrating.
Well, and that's what we saw too, with the with Marilyn Manson thing, is that part of that perfect storm that has been generated around him with this Me Too hoax, it partly came from, guess what, an artist slash activist who was dating Evan Rachel Wood at the time. We'll talk more about her in a
Yeah.
moment, but I wanted to look at one more thing here. This was a PSA that Amber Heard filmed. It was like a domestic violence PSA or whatever. And again, the fact that this woman was given this kind of a platform and taken seriously by people, it's really amazing. But we're gonna look at this. This is so ridiculous.
Welcome to Chad Strand's real
Oh.
estate website.
I'll show
Oh.
the nice real estate website. I don't know what that's doing at the beginning of this. I guess just an ad. But no, this was something that I think that and she also did an interview with Amanda de Cadenet, who later renounced her association with her. But okay, here we go.
I'm strong, smart. I'm not a victim to my detriment. I guess there was a lot of shame attached to that label of victim. It happens to so many women, when it happens in your home behind closed doors with someone you love, it's not this straightforward. If a stranger did this, as it was pointed out to me, if a stranger did this, it would be.
So I just put that up there to show, like, she got a lot of mileage for a while, and of course she got that Washington Post op-ed. Like, I can't believe the Washington Post, again, gave this woman a forum, but then I guess, people just assumed back then it was believe all women, and people assumed that she was telling the truth. But she really, really hurt Johnny Depp's reputation and did for a while destroy his career. And so, it's just interesting to see the media, they're still trying to prop up this woman.
I still think that it's a long game for most of them. I really do believe that what we've learned is that history can be written if you wait long enough and you try hard enough. So if you tell the same lie over and over again for a long enough period of time, the people who can object to it will lose interest or move on to other things, or they die off, right? And one day, truth will be rewritten and you won't even know that it has happened. And that's the real sad fact of it, is that nobody's interested in actual truth. All they're interested in is being right. And by being right, I mean being right by their definition of it.
Right.
They want to be seen as right in the future when we know that that's not the truth, and it's sad.
So I wanted to talk, before we leave the topic of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, I wanted to talk about another development, which is that Johnny Depp's main attorney, and I say main attorney because he has been with him. He's a good friend of his, Adam Waldman. He has been with Johnny really through this whole thing, or he came on, I think, sometime after Amber Heard initially made her allegations, but he has been with him pretty much through this whole thing. He was Johnny Depp's attorney up until, well, there was a problem. There was a problem, and he ended up getting kicked off of the team in Virginia. The judge, he kicked off by the judge, basically, and it's kind of contentious and whatever. But the point is, Adam Waldman has been one of Johnny Depp's biggest defenders. And I have gotten involved in some online drama that most people, I don't think, even really know about. It's something that, like, this sort of small niche of the Johnny Depp community has been arguing over now for months.
Okay.
Which is this question of whether or not Johnny Depp's lawyers during the Virginia trial who came on after Adam Waldman, whether they perhaps underrepresented him in some way for various reasons. I don't want to get into that right now because that's a whole can of worms, but I wanted to talk about what Adam Waldman posted today, because he is really charging at the media, and I appreciate that he's doing this, even though I wish he would address sort of the other stuff that people have been spreading in his name, but that's fine. But he posted this. Apparently it's a Public Enemy song. Do you know your rap, Brett?
I know Public Enemy.
So he posted this. Like I said, this is Johnny Depp's good friend and an attorney for most of this. Don't believe the hype. It's a sequel. As an equal, can I get this through to you? False media. Their pens and pads I'll snatch because I've had it. I'm not an addict fiending for static. Good lyrics. I'll see their tape recorder and grab it. No, you can't have it back, silly rabbit. Okay, so I think what he's referring to here in quoting this, the sequel thing, is this idea that the media, they're trying to generate this sort of renaissance with Amber Heard that like, oh no, let's reevaluate this. We really didn't get it. You really didn't get it right in the trial. You stupid people, you public, you were just fooled by all these social media fans. And so they're trying to, I think they're trying to restart or reform this narrative. And so I thought it was great that he posted that. He has recently come back to Twitter because I think he got hacked, right? People in the audience can confirm that, but he got hacked, and so he had to come back on in a different form. But
and make no mistake, like one of the reasons the media would love to do this is because the media, the media class, they hate you, they hate me, they hate everyone they see as beneath them, which is everyone other than the access level celebrities and politicians they wish they could be, right? So they see themselves as arbiters of truth. And just because the facts don't comport with their reality, they can just change the facts. They actually believe that to be true, and that they will be bringing about a better world by reforming the truth. That would be how they actually see it.
Oh yes, they absolutely, these journalists who are activist, most of them activist journalists, especially at these big name media organizations and businesses, like they very much think that objectivity is not their mission, that their mission is to actually help shape public opinion. And this is something that I read, I don't know, about a year ago. I read an editorial by a former, I think he was a Washington Post reporter, and he was old school. Like he had been reporting in Vietnam and stuff like that, right? Yeah. He said that even though he himself was not a right-winger by any stretch of the imagination, he was an old school liberal. He said that he was really alarmed to see the changes that had taken place over the years recently in his newsroom, because he said that it used to be that even if the media did have a bias, they still, at least to somewhat of a degree, paid lip service to or attempted to provide more objective truth, particularly in certain respects. Okay, so like for instance, a war reporter might go to Vietnam and try to provide an accurate report of what was going on there. He said that what's happened now is that, first of all, most reporters now aren't even going out into the field, that because that's not what it's about. It's about opinion. It's about all of these, controversies and making sure they're pushing a particular point of view or an agenda. And it's not even about gathering facts even. And so I think that has gotten worse. Don't you think? Definitely.
Yeah, it absolutely has been. I mean, I would say going back, like definitely from the Obama years, but I think going all the way back to Clinton, the media has already started. Now, again, I'm not old enough to remember prior to, I was born in 86.
No, I know.
So, what I'm saying, like, right. But I think what the sad fact of it is that when you were willing to hold both sides accountable, it made your criticism of the side you may not agree with, it bolstered that take, right? Because if you're willing to criticize your own, the side in which you vote for, or the policies in which you support, if you're willing to hold them accountable and criticize them, then you would be less likely to look hesitantly upon your criticism of those you don't like. So I was always saying is like, if these news stations just once in a while would just not try to frame, and I'm not holding one side accountable here. I think all corporate media is trash. Now, this is not just CNN or MSNBC. This is Fox News as well. Basically, if you choose your network now, you choose your echo chamber, right? But if both sides were willing to just go out of their way to steelman the argument of the other side, I think that you would find that trust in those corporate entities. Now, it might be too far gone now. I mean, it's so far gone now, I don't think you'll ever gain that back. I don't think it's possible to right a ship that large and unwieldy as something like the corporate press from any network. But if they had been willing to just try to present the best possible argument from both sides, I think that they wouldn't have lost trust so fast. I saw it tonight. Ivory Hecker, who's a fantastic independent journalist. She was one of the people that she spoke out against Fox News for Project Veritas a couple of years ago, live on air. About their funding and stuff like that I think it was related to COVID, but she pointed out that like Trump appointed 5 openly gay ambassadors to different regions. Now, if the corporate press had been willing to just make that a point, right?
Mhm.
Say, look, we
Right.
hate this guy. We think his policies are evil, but here's something he did that you, as a modern day liberal, not a leftist, but as a modern day liberal, might find interesting. If they had been willing to do that, perhaps they wouldn't have lost trust and faith in the media so quickly. But they're not willing to do that because to them, the ability to not just lie, but the ability to simply withhold information is worth its weight in gold. The reason why nobody knows the truth these days isn't necessarily because they're just outright lying to you, though they are. It's because when something comes out, and both sides are guilty of this, when something comes out that doesn't fit what they want said, they just don't talk about it. And that's just as intellectually dishonest in the corporate press as it is. Now, I'm not talking about like commentators. I'm not talking
No, I know what
about
you're meaning. I know what you're
pundits.
saying.
Like, I'm talking about the people who sell themselves as unbiased corporate media where you're supposed to have, a high level of trust.
Right.
And they're not willing to do that. And it would have
Right.
been such an easy thing to do. You can still do all of the negative press you want to do, but just a little. I'm literally trying to help them like frame better here, but they're not willing to do it because they're too biased. It's sad.
Yeah. I feel like that when the Johnny Depp verdict first came down, that because the verdict was because public opinion was so much on Johnny Depp's side, and I feel like the media were kind of caught off guard. They really were. They were not expecting it, or they would have taken better advantage of it. But when you have a situation where someone like Legal Bites or Rakita or any of these other lawyers who streamed the trial and provided commentary, when you have a situation where they're blowing up because there is such a demand for coverage, and yet there aren't that many talk shows on network TV or whatever, they were definitely caught off guard. And so here's the thing, because they were caught off guard and because public opinion was so pro Depp, I think initially there was a little bit of like, okay, well, maybe she was guilty, or maybe she was in the wrong, or maybe, Depp wasn't a bad guy or whatever. But then what it felt like was that very soon then after that, they sort of shook themselves, especially when they saw the impact that it was having on society and people's opinions about like Me Too and Believe Women and stuff. It really, I think once it settled in how profoundly important this had been, then they were like, we got to get our shit together. We got to start putting out this propaganda. And I think they're still doing it. Look at this. This was the big story about Johnny Depp several days ago. Suddenly you see all of these articles about the supposed cozy relationship between Johnny Depp and Mohammed bin Salman, leader of Saudi Arabia, basically. And I don't want to get into a discussion about bin Salman. I'm very ambivalent about him because yes, he's had people assassinated, and just like pretty much all Middle East rulers, he is ruthless. On the other hand, he really has modernized Saudi Arabia in a lot of ways, and I think generally he's trying to make them over time become more westernized. But anyway, another topic. But look, Johnny Depp, he went to the Red Sea film festival. He went to a film festival in Saudi Arabia. I think maybe he's getting money for projects. I don't know, but who cares? Is he not? Do we not understand that all of these actors and actresses at times, their films are produced at times by people that might be questionable to some, and like this guy. He's Saudi Arabia. It's going to have a huge film industry in the upcoming years. Like, I just don't see what the problem is. And to me, it's very shady when you see all of these different outlets now, these media outlets jumping on the bandwagon and to try to get Johnny Depp. And it's no longer just about trying to prove that Johnny Depp abused Amber Heard, because they can see that's not working with the public, although they keep trying. But also now it's like, you're trying to tell me that he's got this bromance with Mohammed bin Salman. Like, I don't even believe that.
Yeah. Also, like, look, if they're if that is their baseline for what is appropriate or acceptable, I would wonder how many of these outlets took Disney to task for Mulan, for the movie Mulan, thanking those who ran literal concentration camps that were housing the Uyghur Muslims when they were making Mulan. Pick and choose your outrage, please. Miss me with that nonsense.
Oh man, yeah. So it really feels like, Tug, that umbrella guy, he said that there was something that so far to him in 2024 was feeling very coordinated about these media attacks on Depp, and I think that that's really interesting, and not that he means that there's like George Soros or whatever is pulling the strings, but this idea that they definitely, these different outlets, they definitely have an agenda not to let this go, and they're going to try to reframe the narrative against Depp in as many ways as possible. And that Modi movie, I'm seeing some BS about the Modi movie. People saying that, well, when you actually look into the life of the artist Modi, that perhaps he committed sexual assault, or I don't know. They're getting, and it's like, so they're going to try to tar Johnny Depp with making a movie about a famous artist who has something in his background. They're just not going to let, they're not going to let rest. They're not.
Rain 65 in the chat is correct. There is an election coming up, and they always get a little bit more medley when elections are coming up. But also, there's a great old bit from George Carlin where he talks about you don't need a formal conspiracy when like-minded people with like-minded interests converge, right? All of these people, and when he's talking about that now, in this context, you have to think that these newsrooms, all of these editors know each other. They're all in the same group chats. They think of themselves as the in-group and you as the out-group. And they are. Have you ever seen that compilation of all the newscasts like during COVID with saying the exact same words?
Yes.
Okay. You're not losing your mind. You are being gaslit. It is absolutely perhaps not a formal conspiracy, but the media is evil. It's evil, and it wants to sell you something. It wants to sell you a particular narrative, and that's why I kind of laugh, because a lot of times I talk about how I believe the internet is going to be the downfall of society, and certainly on my bad days, I do see that way. I do feel like the internet has kind of destroyed culture in a lot of ways and put us at each other's throats more than we've ever been. But at the same time, the ability to democratize information for those who wish to seek it is an unbelievable resource to all of us. So the ability to know that these networks are all, speaking from the same script is something we would not have had 20 or 30 years ago. So I guess maybe a little bit longer than that now. The internet's been around longer than that, but you understand what I'm saying, right? That a lot of this I feel traces back to when the cell phone entered our pockets, right? That's when it really ramped up. They always talk about how the government legalized the American government legalized the ability to propagandize their citizens in 2012, right around the time the iPhone 4 was coming out, and you were getting an unlimited data plan in your pocket at all times. So it's a dystopian world we're in, ladies and gentlemen. Buckle up.
So the last thing I want to talk about with Johnny Depp, and then we're going to talk about Marilyn Manson, but what do you think of the title of this Vice documentary, 9 Lives of Johnny Depp? I mean, that's kind of insulting to him, right? Isn't it? And it basically implying that the guy, with all the bad stuff he's done by now, he should have been nailed, but he just keeps like slipping out. Do you think that's...
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly... It's very bland.
Am I misinterpreting it? You think there's another...
No, that sounds about right. It's very bland, if not, a bit trite. But, what do you expect? It is what it is. I don't expect anything more from corporate press these days.
I see. It's part of a series. Okay, never mind. I was confused. So... The 9 Lives of Celebrity. This is a series about celebrities, and each week it's a different celebrity. Okay, that's at least. I mean, it's still going to be a hit job, but that's a little less alarming, perhaps, or ridiculous than I thought they were going to do an entire. Y'all can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I just looked this up. It looks like that. It looks like it's going to be just that one episode on him, but there's other stuff coming out. So Tug also has disclosed that, and this is interesting, you might have seen this, Tug has disclosed that he was approached by the maker of a podcast. The guy's name, I think it was like Alex Murius or something. Somebody, I'm sorry, I can put it in the chat. But anyway, basically the guy was, he works for The Guardian, or it's one of the Guardian podcasts or something. And so anyway, he had written to Tug asking him all these questions because he's doing a podcast series on Johnny Depp, and apparently it's going to be painting Tug and other social media supporters of Depp in a negative light. And so asking all these questions. And so anyway, it does feel like the media are really trying to start off 2024 with a bang against Depp.
And look, the other reason the corporate press wants to run hit jobs on YouTubers is because they're taking their market share. People aren't going to the news,
Yes.
to get their information anymore. They just aren't. It's funny. They were talking about why was Jon Stewart coming back to the Daily Show? Well, it's not because they expect people to actually show up for the live show. It's so they can cut him up into segments and clip him out on the internet, because that's where they're getting their views these days. Like, nobody's watching the news live anymore. Nobody has time for that.
No, it's true. People just, except for, I think, certain demographics. I think like the elderly demographic is still much more, or at least my grandmother was much more plugged into actual TV. But no, it's definitely true. So Marilyn Manson has been getting some bad press, and I really hate the misrepresentations that are occurring when it comes to what's going on with him and the legal situation.
Okay.
So Rolling Stone was the first out of the gate. Rolling Stone has really been all over Manson with negative coverage since the beginning. So they were the ones who published the article when these allegations first came out, the monster hiding in plain sight. And so the thesis, of course, being that, like, everybody can look at him and see the scary makeup and, the outrageous lyrics and all of that. And so it turns out that he was really a bad guy underneath. But anyway, they started reporting a couple of days ago, and then this has been picked up by a bunch of different outlets, reporting that Manson now has had to, or will have to shell out, he owes nearly $500,000 to Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore, the artist, like I said, an activist who is our co-conspirator, because basically I want to describe for people who may not know, because I have a lot of viewers here who are more depth oriented, or some of your viewers who may not understand really what these articles are glossing over. So the title of this, and you see this repeated in other articles, is owes nearly $500,000 defense lawyers after failed claims. And so article after article, these articles are talking about Manson's failed lawsuit, and that the lawsuit is failed. And so I want to explain to people why this bothers me and others who've been following this case, and what's inaccurate about it. So basically, the anti-SLAPP, there are these laws in California known as anti-SLAPP laws, and they're all over the country in different states, but they're especially strong. Apparently, they are the strongest in California. And basically, what they do is they make it extremely difficult to sue someone if you are suing for defamation, particularly regarding sexual crimes, sexual assault and harassment and things like that. And so what happened was for Manson to even for his lawsuit to even be able to proceed against these two women, Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore, he had to first clear this hurdle of the judge looking at his claims and saying, okay, do I feel like these claims are so rock solid, and that they should basically negate the rights of those who are accusing others of supposed victims of sexual assault and so forth. And so the defamation claims, they did not, in her mind, I guess, clear that bar, because the bar is so high. And, here's the thing. One of the things that I want people to get is that when you actually read the court documents, you really do get a lot of insight on the judge's state of mind. And I just have to be honest and say that I am really concerned that this judge is yet another typical leftist California judge, because of some of the things that she actually said in her rulings. And so that's one thing.
Was there a specific statement in particular that gave you pause?
Well, it's a general attitude of that her time is being wasted, which people who are more woke or more leftist, and they're really entrenched in this sort of Me Too philosophy, they tend to see these types of lawsuits, defamation lawsuits, as frivolous, because we shouldn't even have people suing over this stuff. That there's this notion that it's bad for women and it's bad for victims to be taken to court over this stuff. And so in one of her rulings, she talked about how exhausted she was having to she literally says,
having to do her job. Oh my goodness. That is crazy.
Did. That's how it came across. And I didn't really talk about it at the time because I was focused on other things and what have you. But this was something that really bothered me. And I even asked attorney Andrea Burkhart about it, if this was normal in these kinds of legal rulings for judges to be complaining about how exhausted they were having to read this stuff.
Yeah.
And so the judge made that comment, and then later on she made a derisive comment about the length of the files that had been submitted to her as a part of this. So like, to me, that is really unprofessional, and and she's tipping her hand in that moment, saying basically, I think this is frivolous and I'm pissed that I even had to waste my time reading this. So what she did was she ruled against and killed the defamation part of Manson's lawsuit. And so that's why he is getting so much shit in the media and from lots of people in the media about this. And they say, oh, it's gutted. It's a gutted lawsuit. It's a failed lawsuit. And so I think that's one thing that is not being better explained, or they're not attempting to explain in a lot of these media hits, is like that this doesn't mean that, oh, his claims were just meritless. And no, there's something specific going on with these anti-SLAPP laws in California. But the other thing is that there's still a lot of serious shit remaining in this lawsuit, and that only seems to be barely remarked upon, if at all. And so, I did a video a couple of weeks ago. It's the 3-year anniversary of these allegations against Manson. And so some of us have been covering this now for 3 years, and Manson's, of course, been living through it for 3 years. But I talked about the fact that what remains in this lawsuit, what's not been taken out by the judge because she couldn't find a way to take it out, I guess, is allegations of basically identity theft, impersonation, computer fraud, swatting, which, despite what the anti-Manson people might say, was a big deal. It was not some minor, like just a cop driving up and knocking on the door. There were helicopters outside for hours. There were various police on all sides of the place trying to get in, and all this.
Swatting should carry, like, if you get caught swatting someone, that should be charged as attempted murder. Absolutely.
So you agree that swatting is serious?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we've been through it several times here.
You have at Timcast?
Oh yeah, very, very badly. A couple of years ago, they were happening on a regular basis, and that police response. There's a great still video of me from like one of the outside cameras outside of the building, and there's weapons drawn to keep your hands up, walk towards my voice. And they don't know what's going on. They've been told, oh, there's a guy inside. He murdered his wife. They do this because they want to provoke a police response that brings weapons to bear immediately, which is attempted murder. As far as I'm concerned, it's just the same way that you should treat all provably false allegations to be charged with the same crime in which they were, it should be charged with a sentence akin to the crime that they were being accused of. The same should be true for swatting.
So this has happened to Tim, it's not just Tim, to you. This happened about was it at night?
Yep, during IRL. So it happened like a couple of years ago. It was happening several times over the course of a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 times. Eventually, you have to talk to once it happens, you have to have a conversation with your local law enforcement, because when it happened here, it wasn't just local, it was county, and it was not a pleasant experience. And the point of it, outside of just what could happen if the police don't respond properly and you don't know what's going on. Certainly you can look into cases where swattings have gone very, 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 very wrong, right? That's everyone can look that up right now anywhere on the internet. But also, it's done to discourage you from talking about the things you want to talk about. They want to make your life so difficult that you just give up.
And it is a deterrent to a number of people, because there are a number of people that I've talked to, fans of mine who are really intelligent people and I think could do well on a show. And they've talked to me about how they've wanted to start their own YouTube show, but they don't want to face the kind of stuff that could happen. In Manson's case, this is what people. So there have been Manson haters and Evan Rachel Wood defenders who have said that this was not a big deal because it was just a welfare check. And here's the thing. So we know, apparently, that we know that Evan Rachel Wood's co-conspirator and girlfriend at the time, Ilma Gore, that she was the one who called into this welfare check, or sent this welfare check to the FBI, and told the FBI, you might want to check on this guy, contact the LA police. Now, she didn't want to do it directly call the police, because apparently that could be more problematic in terms of filing a false report or something. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but she decided to go through the FBI. And so the FBI contacts the LAPD and says a friend of Brian Warner's, Ilma Gore, is really concerned about him because she hasn't heard from him, and he might, and basically the implication being that he might be suicidal. And so you have all of these cops show up. And here's what I want people to understand. It may seem like, if you've never been through something like this, that, oh, it's just cops showing up, just a welfare check. But like, once you have cops who, like you were saying, are armed, expecting a possible confrontation with someone who is crazy or who has temporarily lost their mind or whatever, then that is a hyper dangerous situation. And what happened in Manson's case is that I believe that Ilma or Evan called in a tip, or gave a tip to the media, because there was a media person, like a supposed tabloid journalist or whatever, outside Manson's house. And he was telling the cops, this is on camera, by the way, this is filmed. He was telling the cops, this reporter was telling the cops, that he had heard someone screaming inside the house that they wanted to leave, but they couldn't. In other words, you have this random person, maybe it was a reporter, maybe it was someone else, but telling the cops that they could hear someone screaming that they wanted to leave and they couldn't. Well, at that point, if I'm a cop, I'm going to be thinking, I might have a possible hostage situation in here. We know there's this crazy rock star who's already been accused of all of this monstrous behavior and assault and attempted murder or whatever. So to me, that could have been a highly dangerous situation. And we're just lucky that the cop kind of blew the guy off and was like, no, we got it or whatever. But no. So that is an extremely potentially dangerous situation. And Ilma Gore and Evan Rachel Wood knew what they were doing. They wanted to create a scene. Why else would you? It wasn't a welfare check. They're trying to get the guy. They don't care about him. They're trying to create a scene. So.
I mean, not just that, but if a cop has like the ability to enter your home because of those types of circumstances, they can also become witness to anything else that might be going on there. Perhaps you had drugs laying about, any number of things that could have been humiliating to him, or anything like that. Something that would really matter, right? Like that's it's really sad. It's a drain on the resources for public servants in areas that might actually need cops. Right? Like it's a waste. On top of all the other stuff. But the point of something like that, whether it's the welfare check, but especially in these circumstances where they talk about whether or not somebody has been violent with another person, had a psychotic break, the point of something like that is for you to die. They do not want you to survive that. And that's a scary thing, that we live in a world where that is now the norm, where you send cops to somebody's house hoping that something bad happens to someone else. It's just disgusting.
Right. So that's one of the things that is still in the lawsuit. Now, AJ Joseph says, Kurtz, will you please talk about how Grifter Gore, Ilma Gore, and Evan Rachel Heard 2.0 hacked Manson's emails and planted CP pornography? How are they not in jail? So this is something that a lot of people are not familiar with. This is discussed in Manson's lawsuit. It is, yes, it's an allegation, but I've heard that was evidence submitted to the cops of this, or the authorities about this. Apparently, someone CP was sending illicit, illegal things to other people using Manson's email. Now, you might say, well, how did this person get access to Manson's email? Well, here's the other part of this puzzle that's just outrageous. Manson had a disgruntled former employee, a woman named Ashley Walters. So this was a former assistant of his who is now suing him. By the way, this is the one who claimed that she had repressed memory from events that occurred in her 20s, and that basically she didn't remember any of this abuse from Manson until Evan Rachel Wood reminded her of it, basically. And then it all came back to, and it all came back to her in therapy, et cetera, right? Well, anyway, the point is This woman, by the way, she was fired twice by Manson. She was fired the first time because she stole, along with another one of his accusers, Esme Bianco, she stole his car, was a Jaguar, to take it on a joyride, a drunken joyride, because she and the other accuser, Esme Bianco, were pissed at Manson. So they went on a drunken joyride in his Jaguar. They wrecked it. She got a DUI. By the way, this is all on the record. In fact, she had to admit it in her lawsuit against Manson. You know what she says in her lawsuit against Manson? She said that she had to do all of that because she was just so devastated about, about the situation that she was in with him. And so anyway, but she does all of this. He fires her. Then he ends up taking her back because apparently he's kind of a chump when it comes to situations like this. Takes her back. Well, eventually she has to get fired again because she's done some other shit. But here's the thing. She had, as his personal assistant, she had access to all of his social media, his passwords, his emails, like all of that. Like at that point, he lets his assistants get into everything. And so she joins the conspiracy with Evan Rachel Wood, where she gives all of this stuff to them. And so they're trying to get him on these CP charges, right, by sending illicit emails with illicit material to people. Now, here's the thing. This is why the cops raided his home when they did. Remember, there was a theory where they raided his home. And I talked to lawyer Andrea Burkhardt about this. She's got a great YouTube channel. People should check it out. But she said that after reading about this, she said that it sounded like a classic raid for CP, for illicit pornography of a certain kind. She said that's probably what triggered it, is that the cops were actually much more worried about that kind of serious shit. And of course, there have been no arrests, and that was 2 years ago now. So, the cops didn't find anything, or the guy would be in prison.
How the frick did they get where did they get it? And why aren't they in jail?
Well, that's what everybody's that's what everybody's saying. And so I don't know. I know that in Manson's lawsuit, it did make reference to the fact that some of this had been lost because the links were now defunct, but they could be traced back to these particular types of websites. I'm not a computer forensics person, but I think that there's probably enough shadiness, enough evidence of some shady illegal activity that cops could arrest them. But George Gascon, he's the most woke liberal DA in the country. I mean, he's even been reprimanded by Gavin Newsom, right? Basically. So, I just think unfortunately, nothing's going to come of that. But I just want people to understand, there's a lot of serious stuff still in Manson's lawsuit. Now, do I think he's going to get a fair hearing? No, I'm very skeptical. And, I'm cynical about the lawsuit, honestly, being successful or really going anywhere, because the way that the judge has been signaling on this, I'm so exhausted from having to read these briefs.
Yeah. How dare I have to do my job? That does suck.
Anyway. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, 5 minutes or so, and come back. And then we'll go for another 20 minutes or so. We'll talk about some other stuff. If y'all have so I want y'all to be thinking about names, because we were supposed to come up with a name for our live stream. So y'all be thinking about it.
I'm horrible at coming up with names. So somebody else is going to have to come up with a name.
Be thinking about that. When we come back, we're going to say a few more things, talk a little bit more about Manson and Depp, and then we'll round it out with, I want to talk about how horrible Madam Web is apparently. No, I don't.
So
all right, we'll talk in a bit. We'll be back in a little while, y'all. All right. Okay, we are back. So, I was telling people if you would like to make a donation and leave a comment, I will read and respond to it. I see somebody already left one. I'm about to respond, but I'm going to put my my link up again. Donations always appreciated. I know the super chats are fun too. It's unfortunate that YouTube takes so much of the super chat money, a lot more than PayPal. Elon Musk, he has no connection to PayPal anymore, does he? Or does he?
No, he sold it years ago.
Yeah, so like not even like it doesn't give a lot of revenue. Okay, so this person asked, what is what is your beef with Adam Waldman and what's going on? So I don't that's the thing, is I actually don't have a beef with Adam Waldman. And look, I will admit I have been a provocateur on Twitter with this whole controversy, just because, I mean, it's very interesting to a lot of people. And so people can say, oh, I want y'all to stop all the infighting, but the infighting seems to be getting a lot of attention. And so, to me, like, I really think that it's not really that significant one way or the other. But here's what's going on, is that there is a person on Twitter who has represented herself as being in communication with Adam Waldman, Johnny Depp's, good friend and his main attorney through the years.
Yeah.
And she indicated that Johnny Depp's attorneys in Virginia, the ones that have been much lauded by everyone, Brown Rudnick, that they intentionally underrepresented Johnny Depp, and that they didn't try, for instance, really very hard to get Elon Musk subpoenaed and various things, because Elon Musk was a former client of theirs and they were trying to basically keep some of the heat off of him. And also because they were kind of a sort of a proper white shoe law firm that didn't really want to get down into the muck with sort of some of the kind of like tabloidy stuff that they felt that Adam Waldman had been doing with Depp and so forth. So here's the point, is that this person, this woman, alleged a lot of pretty terrible things, shitty things about Johnny Depp's attorneys, and basically implied, well, more than implied at times, stated that she was basically like doing that on behalf of Adam, or at least that she was espousing things that Adam himself believed, and that she's been saying now for months that Adam is going to come forward when he's ready with receipts and with actual evidence of the supposed underrepresentation, legal underrepresentation or malfeasance. And so my frustration is just that, y'all, I mean, these allegations, they're way back from the summer, and nothing has been
come out
or even been put out there. And here's the other thing that was really worrisome to me, or upsetting, is that this woman who's been saying these things, she made a number of statements that were actually proven to be completely untrue, non-factual. And so somebody came out on Twitter and with the receipts and said, well, actually, this didn't happen this way, this didn't happen, and you got that wrong. And so, I initially was very open to her claims, and I even did a video on them. You could say, in a way, promoting them, or at least putting them out there as an option. But when I saw that there was no evidence forthcoming, and that there was just a lot of anger at another woman for even voicing doubt about these claims, then I just feel like the whole thing I just really soured on the whole thing. And so I don't look, do I really expect Johnny Depp's longtime friend and lawyer to answer to me? No, but I just wanted to put the question out there. So he came out on the internet, he resurfaced on Twitter, and I simply said, please provide any evidence of these claims if you have it. And look, let's say that he never believed these things or was never espousing them, that this person that I'm talking about just went rogue and that she wasn't representing him. I just feel like it'd be good if he'd kind of clear the air on that too, because she's been basically speaking in his name in a way, and gotten a lot of people riled up. And so I just think that there needs to be some clarity, because this has gone on now for months and months, and she keeps saying, well, you need just to wait for Adam. Well, you can't just let stuff like that, like serious, heavy, absurd claims just kind of hang out there forever. So I don't know, but I have nothing against Adam. I don't have anything against this woman, except that I just don't know what the hell's going on with these claims not being backed up. But anyway, they have been around forever with Johnny Depp. They definitely did way more for Johnny Depp than I have done. I'll admit that I was totally late to the party on the Johnny Depp thing, and really, only started making videos a year before the trial. But you don't just get like a free pass to say really serious, outrageous to make these allegations against Johnny Depp's attorneys that are regarded as being heroic. You can't just put all that out there and imply that you're speaking on behalf of Adam Waldman and then just be like, never mind, guys, y'all need to just wait and chill out and shut up. And by the way, there's this other person that I hate and have all of this backlog of drama with that I'm going to now like air in front of you. Like it just got ridiculous. So anyway, that's the answer to my question. Do you have a lot of like drama, like in your worlds, like Pop Culture Crisis? I've been putting your link up. I'm put up again.
I do not. Even if there was, I don't engage in it. I don't have the energy or the time to do so. I just don't. Like, perhaps out there. Like, also, let's be honest. Like, I'm not exactly the most controversial person. So
I like that about you. You're not.
No, Mary. People have their take issue with Mary's opinions sometimes, but that's not usually always stemming from the show. A lot of times that's something that'll happen on Twitter or something like that. But for me, like if that's to happen, I'm just not going to engage with it because it's just like, look, every day I get up and I look at what's going on in Hollywood and entertainment, how it's affecting, the news cycle. We look at TikTok, we look at social media trends, and I just enjoy going out and having a general conversation about these things. And the idea that that's worth getting into like arguments on the internet about is absolutely insane to me. To me, it's still insane that I get it a little bit more. Like when I talk about swattings happening here, like I still find that to be absolutely bonkers that politics gets people to do such ridiculous things. But I get it, right? Like people take it very seriously. Every election is the most important election of all time, and we have to save democracy and what other garbage these scumbags are selling you at any given time, right? So it makes a little bit more sense there. But the idea that I would have to like get into drama someone is actually laughable, I just wouldn't respond. I don't have the energy to respond. I just don't. It's also why I'm never gonna be like, I'll never be like a public figure or anything like that, because even if somebody wanted to fight with me about something, and I don't know what the hell that would be about, I would just ignore it because I don't have the energy or the patience to argue with people on the internet. Now, if people want to come on the show, now we have people, like you even said, like when you came on last time, that you wanted to debate with Mary about some stuff and stuff like that. That stuff's healthy. That makes sense. That's actually happening in person where you can have a discussion about something that you disagree on. But like, I just don't have the time. Like I tweet like once every. Okay, so I'll go through days where I'll tweet a couple of things. Other than that, I don't even use Twitter that much. I'll be like, oh, remember this old movie or TV show that I used to really like? You should go watch that. It tends to be more positive than anything else. I don't have time for drama.
I think some of it too, some of the drama is generated more also from the fact that what I do or have been doing gets a little bit more into the advocacy realm, because like your show, it's about I know you have opinions, right? And you promote them, but it's not like you're not trying to push like a particular point of view on us about something that you just passionately care about, right? I think there's something interesting going on with the justice for whomever communities, or justice for Depp, justice for Manson, or whatever. There is something
that's a little bit different, right? Because like you're getting to like you guys are getting to like the core of like important issues about the relationship between men and women and rights in the courts and stuff like that, and all of that is so very serious. I want to come out and talk to you about how much this movie sucked and how stupid the social media trend is, where we can look at something. And to be fair, even on that stuff, like me and Mary disagree on stuff all the time, like whether we're talking about the women of OnlyFans, in which Mary has her opinions and I'm over here like, I don't really care what the ladies do, like yeah. It's just like I don't have it in me. That's just not me. Now I get it, because for those who care, like when you cover these stories that you care about so much, you have so much detail and you have so much insight, because you believe that these stories that you're following have a grand consequence for society. And you're right in a lot of cases. To me, I just want to give people something to watch that's fun to talk about for a couple of hours every day. And the idea that that would cause some type of uproar online and force me to like argue with someone, I'm just like, bro, I don't got time for this.
It is amazing though how many people do really get passionate even about like, you know, their comic book movies or what have you.
Oh, yeah.
So does anybody that you respect really like Madam Web, or is it just being universally trash?
No, I did see one really, really funny tweet that was like, Madam Web is awful. Words actually have a hard time describing how awful it is. However bad you think it is, it's worse. And I love it, which made me laugh. I actually got a really big kick out of that. But to me, like, I was actually like, it borders on the realm of literally so bad that it's good. But the problem
is it corny or is it just kind of boring or what?
So in this movie, first of all, the dialogue is absolutely atrocious. But the problem is atrocious dialogue can be saved by really, really good actors. This movie does not have that, ladies and gentlemen. If there was a superhero called Xanax Man, Dakota Johnson would be the best person in the world to portray Xanax Man, because she delivers every line with that same like, hello.
She was like that in the well, you know, it's interesting because she was like that in those the sex movies, whatever, 50 Shades. But I just thought that's like the character that she was trying. But that's just her, like in every movie, maybe.
No, it's so funny. There's this scene where she's supposedly driving an ambulance. First, there's an actor named Adam Scott in this movie who's actually pretty good. He plays Ben Parker. But there's this scene. Remember, she's an ambulance driver in New York City. So Adam Scott, so Ben Parker's in the back of the ambulance, keeping somebody alive, and she's driving the ambulance with the lights blaring through New York City to get them to an ambulance, and she sounds like she just downed a bunch of Quaaludes, and it's just like, and she's like, they're like having this back and forth like this, and then one of the characters stops in front of the car, and she stops the car really suddenly, and she has this this really benign like stare down at this girl where she looks like she'd rather be anywhere than where she is right now. And the girl slowly walks out of the way. Remember, the ambulance is still blaring. The siren is still blaring. Supposedly she's in a rush, and she goes, da, 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 and then just drives away. She doesn't like hit the gas. She doesn't, it's so bad. I can't even put into words how bad it is. Now, also the funniest thing about it is basically the whole movie is a giant ad for Pepsi, which is really, really funny.
Oh, there was really prominent product placement there.
Yeah. One of my favorite things being that, you remember if you ever saw Wayne's World where he like holds up the Pepsi can, he says, yes. And it's the choice of a new generation. It's kind of like that, only the product placement isn't satire. It's just like, look, guys, I can't advise anyone to go see this movie in theaters because it's so expensive to go to the theaters these days. It really, really is, especially if you're going to get drinks and soda or drinks and snacks and stuff like that. But, you know, I would not advise anyone to partake in alcoholic beverages, especially if you're under the age, if you're of age. If you want to play drinking games with this movie, you might actually have a lot of fun with it once it comes out on streaming. Okay, do not go to see this movie in theaters, but it is absolutely hilarious. It's so bad. The bad guy is almost worse. Like, he also has absolutely no ability to emote whatsoever. And it's kind of shocking. They took They took Spider-Man's iconic catchphrase, from Uncle Ben, and they butchered it. So the original phrase is, with great power comes great responsibility. Okay. I love that phrase. Okay. The idea is that, whether you're bitten by a radioactive spider, or, powers befall you, and then you must rise to the occasion and take responsibility for this power that you have been given. I think that that's beautiful. Okay. In the movie, they use the phrase, if you take responsibility, great power will come, which is really, really creepy and fascistic sounding. And I don't like it. I think it's bullshit. And I just no. Just no. There will be no sequel. There will not be Madam Web 2 Electric Boogaloo. There will not be a Madam Web cinematic universe. If you guys, and again, I don't know how much of your audience. I apologize if I'm going off on this. Like, I don't know how many of you guys watch superhero movies
I heard it's bad.
or read comics growing up, but the Sony universe, which is essentially back in the 90s, Marvel was going broke and they had to sell off the rights to a lot of their most prominent characters. That's how 20th Century Fox ended up with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, and Sony ended up with a bunch of the Spider-Man characters. So Sony's been doing their own movies. They're basically licensing Spider-Man back to Marvel because they won't sell them back to them. Disney literally bought 20th Century Fox so that they could get a hold of those characters again on top of other things. Okay. But Sony's not selling because Spider-Man is the most popular superhero in the world. So they're making these movies and they're bad. The problem is the thing they had going for them is like Venom has Tom Hardy. Everyone loves Tom Hardy, right? Tom Hardy's a good actor. Even Morbius, which was a bad movie, has Jared Leto, which as divisive as he may be, is still a better actor than Dakota Johnson. It's bad, guys. It's bad.
Well, I'll say this, it seems like even with all the complaining that I see about a lot of these movies, they keep making them. But on the other hand, it used to be, because I've always, even when they were good, I've always disliked the genre of comic book based movies. Not
really?
Generally speaking. Yeah, no, I actually I don't understand most of what half of the internet is talking about, and because there's so many people Tug is into it and you're into it, and there's all these Nerdrotic and Yellow Flash and all these people who are so successful, and I just could care less. But I'll say this, it used to be that when I would say I'm tired of superhero movies or whatever, most people would be like, oh no, there's still a lot of good ones and whatever. But now I feel like when I say that, there are a lot of people who are like, there's still some good ones, but there are too many superhero movies.
Yep. That's the problem for a lot of it. And let's be fair, a lot of those guys, I'm more of a movie buff than I was a comic buff. I read a little bit growing up, but not nearly to the level of all of these people. And I feel bad for them, just like I feel bad for Star Wars fans, right? I feel bad for Star Wars fans. I feel bad for Star Trek fans. I feel bad for comic book fans because they've had to watch these things that they grew up loving and cherishing and watch them get absolutely destroyed by an industry that doesn't really care about the lore. It doesn't really care about really getting these characters right. What they care about is crapping out the most recent property that they have to. For somebody like Sony, it's not even about making a movie that they like or to get you to go to the box office. They just have to make them so that they can continue to hold on to the copyright.
Man, yeah, some of these business decisions it's really fascinating. Or the question of the fact that it's more profitable or it's better financially to just not even release a movie, right? Yep. Sometimes if it's going to be bad. No, it's interesting. And you mentioned Killers of the Flower Moon. I wanted to say, since you brought that up, I felt kind of ambivalent about that movie because, on the one hand, look, no Scorsese movie is going to be bad. But I love historical stuff, and I thought that the acting was really great and whatever. But I mean, I actually did feel like at times it was kind of long-winded. Even I know Scorsese is in general, and I like that, but it did feel a little self-indulgent maybe, or indulgent. And then also I did not like, and I'm not giving away a plot point here, but at the end. Have you heard about the stylistic choice that Scorsese made at the end, where he turns the conclusion into a radio, an old time radio show?
Okay.
And so it's very jarring. It feels almost like if I can say this, it sounds so sacrilegious, but he's trying too hard or something. I don't know. I just hated the ending, but I didn't feel like it was one of his best. But still, I appreciate a movie like that. I still think there's a lot of good stuff in those types of films. Madam Web, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Also, and if you guys are wondering, it did bomb at the box office. It made $25 million over 6 days. Over the 3-day weekend, it only made $17 million. One of the things that is true that when it comes to a lot of these movies, right, is that these big studios will hire nobodies who have no credibility because they're the ones in charge, and they don't like it when these bigger directors, at least on these properties, try to take creative control. But the beauty of a movie like Scorsese's movies, or even who was the guy who directed Amsterdam, which I actually liked and a lot of other people didn't.
I don't know, but I heard it was good. Yeah.
with a lot of these kind of more vanity projects for these bigger directors, you're at least going to get to see a lot of stylistic directing that's honest to the director and not something that's just spewed out by the studio.
That's
now,
true.
whether the movie's good is up in the air for anybody, but for most of it, like for me, I love the popcorn bucket movies. Like I don't need a movie with a big meaningful plot. In fact, most of the time I roll my eyes at that. So this formula shouldn't be that hard to do, but they just can't seem to get it right these days.
And I too absolutely love a well done popcorn movie. And I am the minority, I guess. I'm looking forward to Twisters because I posted the trailer for Twisters that they aired during the Super Bowl because I was like, oh, I so love these tornado movies. And it's particularly Twisters. And I got all these negative comments and people were like, oh God, another remake. This looks terrible or whatever. And I'm like, how does it look terrible? It looks like the first one. A lot of CGI that looked pretty decent to me. Big tornadoes.
No Bill Paxton. No Bill Paxton is pretty sus.
Well, I know.
Bill Paxton.
I like Glenn. I like Glenn Powell though.
Glenn Powell's good, right? And look. Well, who does it? Yeah, like the thing that's funny about it is I'm actually a lot less critical than I liked a lot of movies last year. I had a list of 17 movies that at the very least I could give a positive rating. There was others that I didn't dislike but didn't really like. A lot
of good movies still. No, I do think that those kinds of complaints are overwrought. Like, oh, there's no great movies. There's still a lot of great movies. Mama Otter says, will Madam Web be the showgirls of superhero movies? Could be. Now, I don't understand the second comment. She asked, is Halle
Berry played Catwoman in the very, very bad Catwoman movie. Right. I would say, there's a perfect example, right? Like, that era, we're talking about Ben Affleck, Daredevil, and Jennifer Garner, Elektra, both of which I actually have no problem rewatching from time to time. Like, it's not that hard to do it right, guys. Really bad CGI isn't even all that awful as long as as long as the story is fun. Like, it just doesn't bother me. So, I don't know.
Well, and by the way, thanks, Jess. I just saw that comment. Some of the comments I see in a delay, but and thank you for that super chat there, Mama.
I did see a lot of people were critical. I saw somebody in the chat asked if you got around to seeing The Creator. Last year I had a couple of people push back on me because I liked both The Creator and Oppenheimer, and they said both of them were communist propaganda. Yeah, a little bit, but again,
more rowdy about the political stuff, or your people are a little more rowdy about political stuff than
I was
mine
I can watch a movie
about
some
the communism thing though that I'm not sure a lot of people understand is they were for a while. When people like Oppenheimer, or it wasn't even Oppenheimer, I mean, people close to him or whatever, were joining the party and what have you, that's because they had been big allies of ours in World War II. And so you have to remember, you had a lot of people who were really freaked out about Hitler and were grateful. I don't think we could have won that thing without the Russians. I really don't, the Soviets. So anyway, that doesn't vindicate Stalin, who, killed millions of people with his failed policies and was a totalitarian and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just saying that there was also a lag in knowledge because there were a number of intellectuals, such as, for one, is George Orwell, who initially started off, I know he wasn't American, but started off being very much more optimistic about the Soviet Union until then they started hearing what was going on. And there's a movie actually about this. Did you see the movie was it Mr. Jones? About some of you might have seen it, look it up in the chat, but it's about these journalists who went over to the Soviet Union and actually discovered that Stalin was killing Ukrainians by taking all of their grain out to fund his war machines or whatever, right? Anyway, my point is, though, Americans, they didn't know that. So you had all of these intellectuals who really, didn't have these negative feelings about communism that we do. And it was still experimental. We have all of these years now to look back and see all the ways in which communism failed, but it was an experimental thing. And look, Marxist ideology, it's very attractive. There are, in certain ways, there are aspects of it that I think are actually dead on great critiques of capitalism. Okay. And I'm a big capitalist, but I'm just saying it was a different time. And so I think that it's okay to watch a movie like that and feel sympathy for these people who got trapped in these political witch hunts for decisions that they made back when they were much more understandable. I don't know.
And at that time, like, it was like, if you're making movies about actors and intellectuals, there was a lot of overlap there, you know, between the workers' unions at these schools and stuff like that, Harvard, Caltech, and all those places.
Yeah.
There's a lot of overlap there. So that makes sense and feels real to me. And it didn't feel to me, now again, maybe I'm less jaded, and again, I'm no expert on any of these topics, but it didn't feel like an endorsement of the ideology, more than it felt that it was just a portrayal of these characters and their beliefs. Now, I could be wrong. I'm freely willing to admit that. I'm certainly no historian or political strategist, and I don't have any great knowledge outside of just doing a certain amount of reading on these topics that interest me. Certainly that's what my Wikipedia tabs would make you laugh, I'm sure. But, like, you know, going all the way back to it's just weird. I just find it that people are so sensitive to these topics now that any mention of it at all seems to bother them. Now, I will say Hollywood does love to make movies about Hitler, doesn't make a whole ton of movies about Stalin.
No, it's
right?
true.
Like,
which is why people should see this Mr. Jones movie. Actually, it was recent. It had some big names in it, such as like Vanessa. Oh God, what's her name? She was in the Mission Impossible.
Kirby. Oh, Vanessa Kirby.
Exactly. Yeah, Kirby.
Yeah.
I think that the best film propaganda, movie propaganda for communism, or for the Marxist perspective, I should say, is In Time with Justin Timberlake. It's not even a joke.
I never saw it. I keep being told to watch that one. I need to watch that one.
So I had a professor in grad school who was an avowed Marxist. Like, he was old school Marxist, right? And I remember telling him, you got to watch this movie. And he totally didn't get it. He thought it was so superficial. And he was kind of like, I don't know why you thought that was a great movie. I said, I didn't think it was a great movie, but I thought it was a great illustration of the Marxist perspective about so the idea is that instead of currency, their currency is actual, like, years on your life. Like, they conquered aging or whatever. And so rich people literally live longer. And look, like I said, I'm a big capitalist. It's a flawed system. I think it's the best we've got so far. But there were some things in that movie that made me think, like, this is an interesting perspective. So anyway, I've got to go downstairs because my significant other is actually making dinner for me. I'm so lucky. So we're going to call it quits. But I wanted to tell everybody, make sure to check out your channel. This time I did put the links in the description.
Yes.
So you actually will click on it. It's below Pop Culture Crisis. Check it out every Monday through Friday. What's the
Monday
time
through
again?
Friday. Guys, we are live 5 days a week, 5 days, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over here. You should come and hang out with us. We have a lot of fun over there. If you had fun here tonight, you'll have fun over there. It's a good time.
Yes, check it out. And I actually, it's nice that nobody's asked me about this, but I actually am going to, hopefully, if things work out this time, I'm going to see you this weekend in person. Because yes. So I'm scheduled to go on a Culture War with Tim Pool and Shane Cashman, and this was supposed to happen several weeks ago, but things changed schedule wise, and so nobody's actually asked me, which is nice of y'all not to bring it up, I guess. But yes, I did get bumped for someone more famous. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, it's been rescheduled, and so hopefully it's going to happen this weekend, and so I look forward to seeing you, on Friday in person, you and Mary. Yeah, but everybody check out
the studio and say hi.
No, I'd love to. Like, we should totally do that. So anyway, check out his show, links below. Also, donations appreciated. And like I said, depend on you and my waitressing job to get by. And we do split the tips. So everybody, the link for that also for my PayPal is below. So thanks a lot. And we will see y'all next week.
All right.
Bye-bye. And
Bye,
we
guys.
are ending now.